But what about energy security, energy poverty in the West?
To punish Saudi Arabia over its decision to cut oil production.
There will be consequences.
Are you using energy as a weapon?
Why is the USA angry with Saudi Arabia after oil production cut? And why does Saudi Arabia refuse to politicize oil? In what some might perceive as an unexpected move, OPEC Plus has decided on the 5th of October to cut its oil production by 2 million barrels a day to create a supply and demand balance, and to avoid a sudden drop in oil prices like what happened around 2 years ago during the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite it being taken on economic grounds, as OPEC Plus clarifies, the decision has angered the United States, sparking political statements from President Biden's administration, which described the decision as disappointing and a hostile act against the United States.
There will be consequences.
But was the decision purely economic, or does it have political implications? Regardless, as the White House claims. And why does the Biden administration blame Saudi Arabia for oil cuts, although it was a unanimous decision of 23 member states? Let's take a look at OPEC Plus and its role in the global oil market. It was formed in 2016. OPEC Plus includes 23 oil exporting countries, of which 13 are members of OPEC, Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. The main objective of the group was to reduce the supply of crude oil to stabilize prices in the global market. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Russia are the group's biggest oil exporters, and the total oil production of this assembly makes up around 40% of the world's crude oil. According to many research centers and institutions concerned with energy, OPEC is an economic organization which aims to balance the global market. It increased production earlier this year to control prices, just as it does the opposite now to ensue balance, not to manipulate the market. So, for some in the Biden administration to blame OPEC Plus for the rise in oil prices makes for a weak argument. A survey conducted by OPEC this year shows that every US dollar paid by consumers per 1 liter crude oil is divided as next. 30% goes to producers, 21% goes to suppliers and distributors, and 49% goes to local governments in taxes. This means that authorities make 49% profit from every sold liter and can therefore control and reduce local prices without blaming oil-producing countries for protecting their economic interests. It's no doubt that Saudi Arabia puts its economic interests first, as it works on protecting the global market from a big economic crisis, before taking into consideration the internal American politics, as was asserted by Saudi Energy Minister Abdulaziz bin Salman, who discussed that the government is putting forth preemptive plans to avoid what happened in 2008 with the financial crisis that caused a sudden fall in oil prices. Does cutting oil production by a 2 million barrels per day, i.e. 2%, necessarily mean that the product prices will rise in global markets? An energy-focused institution, which is specialized in analyzing market data and their impact, has shown in a recent report that cutting oil production to 1 million barrels can help prevent oil prices from falling, and can keep the price at around $90 per barrel. It has shown that the actual reduction is going to be between 800,000 and 1,100,000 barrels only in effect until 2022, and that will be followed by a market analysis to check the need for increased production would the demand increase too. This means that oil-rich countries' exports will remain almost the same, and that the US administration's problematization of OPEC Plus economic decision is ill-reasoned. Nonetheless, Biden's administration has insisted on making OPEC Plus's decision seem political, and this is for a reason, as the Washington Post has explained. OPEC Plus's decision, led by Saudi Arabia, the biggest oil producer in the world, has been painful to Biden's government because it's the second time Biden fails to convince biggest oil supplying countries to increase their production. after his first failing attempt when he visited Saudi Arabia back in July, which he denied was aimed to convince the kingdom to increase its oil output and was rather focused on discussing Middle Eastern issues. Perhaps what Biden and the Republican Party are fearing most is losing control of the Congress. Given that the midterm elections are about to start in 4 weeks and the economic situation plays a big role in influencing voters' choices, not to mention the current administration's need to use more of the country's strategic petroleum reserve, which is reaching its lowest level in 38 years. The White House policies against Saudi Arabia are not accepted by many American politicians, such as Senator Ted Cruz, who recently attacked President Biden in an interview with Fox News, saying that the Saudis want to be friends with us, but Biden did all he can to attack them, considering them to be idiotic. In return, Saudi Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Adel Al-Jubeir stated in an interview with American Fox News that the American reaction to OPEC Plus decision is emotional and is a part of the upcoming American elections, explaining that oil is not a weapon, not a fighter plane, neither a tank. You can't shoot it, and asserting the Saudi perception of oil as a fundamental product to the global economy.
I think that this is probably part of the emotions that have to do with upcoming elections. Saudi Arabia does not politicize oil or oil decisions. Oil is not a weapon, it's not a fighter plane, it's not a tank. You can't shoot it, you can't do anything with it. We look at oil as a commodity and we look at oil as important to the global economy in which we have a huge stake.
He added that the reason for the spike in prices is due to the lack of American refineries, an issue that hasn't been addressed by US administrations for decades. OPEC Plus asserts that the reduction and increase in oil production is grounded in economic and technical reasons, whereas the Biden administration and the Republican Party keep using it as a political tool. What matters to the US is above all its interests and the demonstration of its power on other nations and international organizations, which it hasn't succeeded in achieving with this case so far.